Hi, my name is Mark, and yes, it's another video about soloing and improvising, but hey, what can I say, it's a big part of playing guitar. And also, a big part of us playing guitar is kind of this insatiable need of learning new licks and new scales and new arpeggios, because that's how you're gonna play better. There's always that magical arpeggio that everybody seems to play, and then you master it and need to move to other scales, and then you start learning fancy jazz scales, and you try to find lessons on how to break out of the pentatonic scale, because your blues scale can't do the job no more, nor your regular arpeggios and triads. And I'm not here to tell you to not ravage those rabbit holes. In fact, I have a couple of videos where I talk about that myself. But I am instead here to tell you about something that perhaps you've missed, or even if you haven't missed, you probably haven't used to its full potential. Sure, venture into your symmetrical scales and melodic minors and all, but also take what I'm going to teach you for a spin. But before I do, I just want to say, please subscribe to my channel. You're probably aware that YouTube's been acting a little bit weird lately. Even if you subscribe to a channel, those channels' videos may really not show up in your subscription box. And even if you ring the little notification bell thingy below, you still really will not be notified of that channel's content. So if you want to stay tuned to my content or the content of your favorite creators, you really should subscribe and turn on all the notifications. And since that may or may not work, I highly suggest you follow me on social media. Not only do I post some exclusive stuff there, like improvised solos and jamming over backing tracks, and generally whatever I'm up to at the moment, but I always post there about my videos. Links for the usual suspects will be below, like Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, even though I don't really post much on Twitter, will be below. But in general, at Mark and Guitar. And since you're down there, please consider leaving a like, and perhaps check out some of my other videos after this one. Perhaps you'd like to check out how to learn all of the picking techniques and even perhaps get a girlfriend just by learning this one riff? Or even maybe how about this awesome trick to improvise and play over chord changes that is approved by Martin Friedman and Justin Becker? And lastly but not leastly, how to apply any scale possible. All of those videos will be on the description below, on the card section right there, and on the annotations of the end screen. So please, stay tuned. And I guess now we can get straight into it. Before we go through with this, you may need a little bit of theory to get around this, and if you think you're a little rusty on it, or maybe it isn't your strongest spot, I have some videos where I talk about it that you can check out. Again, they will be in the card section right there. Okay, so getting to the lesson part of the video. As I mentioned before, there's always a time when we want to learn new scales, so we start learning all of these crazy scales. And we then want to learn all of the modes of that scale, and then we want to know all of the chords of that scale, whether it's to improvise over weird chord changes, or to add that outside spicy sound to your playing. And again, I highly suggest to do that. But I have a suggestion. Perhaps try to take it back a little bit. And I'm not saying take it back as into just learn normal scales, I'm saying go further back. And with further back, I don't really mean going to arpeggios, nor triads. We're going way down into dyads. And if you're not sure what the dyad is, pretty much every time you play a power chord, you have a dyad. You know, like when you have perhaps a D minor triad? We call it a triad because it has 3 notes. If you just have 2 notes, like a power chord, you have a dyad. If you have, for instance, a D and an F, aka D and its minor third, you also have a dyad. It's not really a full D minor chord, nor a full D minor triad. It's just a D dyad. If you're a fan of metal, and not exclusively but specifically, Dave Mustaine from Megadeth likes to use this a lot, for instance in songs like Holy Wars. And you can, as Dave did, use it in some sort of a riff context, and you don't necessarily need to have that full metal sound. You can use it in some sort of a rock fusion-y vibe. But you can also use it when soloing and improvising. And you may say, oh yeah, but I kinda do that already. Perhaps you do some of those kind of country-ish sixths. Or maybe you have some of those more John Mayer-ish Nuno Betancourt licks. Or again, some of those more bluesy country-ish double stop licks. And again, don't get me wrong, those are some awesome licks. But here's where my suggestion is. You can also use dyads to kind of harmonize the licks you already have. And again, as mentioned before, since you already play power chords, if you make every note of your lick a power chord, you're already using this dyad kind of thing, like... For instance, let's say that you have a lick like, again, we're in kind of C minor pentatonic-ish. Let's say that you have a lick like, again, but a little slower. You could perhaps play some dyads along with that lick. For instance, we can try to add the third of each chord. And with this lick, we could just add it right here, the third. But it can get a little bit mushy, so I thought I'd add it an octave up. Like instead of doing this, I would do, again, here's the lick slow. And if you add the third of each note an octave up. And as you can see, I kind of rearrange it a little bit, because using this specific lick, this last part, it's kind of a big jump you kind of have to do. And let's be honest, ain't nobody got time for that. But it kind of sounds cool, right? It kind of gives it a more fresh sound. And again, if you are unsure of how to do this, supposing that you know a little bit about theory, as I mentioned before, in this case we were in kind of C minor, C pentatonic-ish. If we kind of assume we're in C Aeolian, I just found the third of each specific note. The first note of the lick is a C. So I went 1, 2, 3. There I found a third. I just put it an octave up. The same thing with the next note. The next note is a D sharp. 1, 2, 3. And that's basically how you do it. As I mentioned before, in this case I chose the third, but you can choose any note you want. Just remember that some notes will sound better than others. If you try to do fourths, it kind of gives you this really outside sound, even though just like this it will kind of sound alright, because you don't really have something to distinguish. It just sounds like you're playing the same lick but in F instead of playing it in C. But if I give you a little bit of context, playing a C minor chord, doesn't sound like terribly bad, but it's not really your best choice. Again, we talked about doing power chords, and before we move to the sixths, I just want to briefly mention the sevenths. Because even though it's kind of a little bit dissonant sometimes, you kind of get this instant jazzy sound. Again, I didn't do it perfectly, as in I played each note and its seventh, because sometimes it kind of gives you these awkward positions. But the purpose of this lesson isn't to exactly play each one of these kind of harmonizations, I would suppose, but it's to give you an idea of what you can do. And once more with the sevenths, I just went, okay, C Aeolian, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th, okay, 7th. Then we had D sharp, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th. And now lastly, but not leastly, the sixth. I decided I'd change the lick a little bit, just to show you another thing you can do with these sorts of things. Again, staying in C minor-ish, C minor pentatonic. If you grab another simple lick like, again but a little slower. In this case we start in B flat. If we just go for the sixth, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We could do, but I think it's probably a little bit more comfortable if we do it on the B string. It would kind of sound like this. And even though it sounds alright, as I mentioned before, till now we've been using the C Aeolian skeleton, if you want to look at it like that. As in, we're basing each note choice in C Aeolian. But supposing that we're just playing over a C minor chord, or even a C minor 7th chord, harmonically, you have some interesting choices, because we've been using C Aeolian, but you can use any scale you want. For instance, let's say that you want to use Dorian. In this case, the main difference is that the sixth of C isn't going to be an A flat, it's going to be an A. And instead of having, we're going to have, and as I would guess, you were probably able to hear the difference from going from. Even though small, it's kind of significant. Not only finger position-wise, but also sound-wise. It doesn't sound as dark, right? You could mix scales. For instance, you could do the first part Dorian and the last part Aeolian, like. Or even get creative and do, I don't know, the first part Dorian and the last part Mixolydian. And even though in this last part I only use scales that are modes of the major scale, again, you don't really need to. You can play whichever fancy scale you want. You can choose dyads from the altered scale or the melodic minor scale. The sky is the limit pretty much. So summing this up real quick, I guess what it comes down to is, even though you already know you can play two notes at the same time, with all of those double stop things and very specific dyad licks, you can start to incorporate this mentality to some of your licks, in a way kind of harmonizing your own licks and getting you this fresher sound just by using stuff you already know, without really having to learn of these crazy arpeggios and scales and modes. And even though in the beginning of the video I mentioned that you need to use theory, and while I was explaining all of those things, I said, okay, we're using C Aeolian as a template, or C Dorian as a template, or C Mixolydian as a template. You can still use this sort of a thing by using your ears. If you're playing a lick like, and it sounds good to you, why worry about theory when you can just be playing it? Sure, theory will help to understand these sorts of things, and when to apply the sorts of things, when you're supposed to play this and when you're not, but that shouldn't stop you. And again, don't take this out of context, I really think you should learn theory and all, but hey, we're probably extending this to a point where we shouldn't, right? Let's just get it over with. Play your arpeggios, play your triad licks, and even play all of your crazy scales. But don't forget about dear old dyads. Thank you so very much for watching. I hope this video was helpful to you in any way possible. And if it was, please leave me a comment below. Do you have anything to add to this discussion? Did you agree? Did you not agree? Was there something I missed? Something I should have said? If you have any suggestions for videos, I have a dedicated series to that called Dyads, You Ask, I Teach, where as the name implies, I teach anything you leave in the comment section below. Guitar or music related, of course. So yeah, the comment section is all yours. And as always, and as mentioned before, I'm giving away free one-on-one Skype lessons. And anyone can enter, but they are limited though, so you gotta be fast. And all you have to do to win one free Skype lesson and discounts on future lessons is to subscribe to my channel, turn on all the notifications, then follow me on Instagram. And then DM me either on Instagram or one of my other social medias with screenshots, proving that you did everything mentioned before. And yeah, I guess that's it. Again, thank you so very much for watching. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, turn on all the notifications. Don't forget to perhaps check out some of my other videos after this one. Again, they're in the card section right there, and will be in the annotation section of the end screen in just a couple of seconds, so please stay tuned. Perhaps apply for those Skype lesson thingies. Don't forget to leave a comment for my Dyads series, and yeah, cheers!